Final Destination has always been a favorite film of mine, ever since the first film, but we can all admit that the sequels never lived up to the reputation of the first installment in the franchise. It has been 14 years since the last film of Final Destination back in 2011. There is a huge gap between sequels. The characters in each film all try to avoid death, but death always finds a way. Just like the executives at Warner Brothers Studios, they always find a way to kill a good film. So let's take a deep dive into the latest installment called Final Destination Bloodlines. Just for warning though, there are spoilers. First off, the poster of the latest film is with a fireball around a tower, while that scene is right at the beginning of the film. And I just want to say, with the amount of people they had in the tower on the opening day, it was already overcrowded. But I am glad that the kid responsible for what happened that evening died as well. I know that sounds so harsh, but as you can imagine, damn, the deaths are gruesome in this film. And I had to look away at times because all you see is red jam juice.
Corn syrup. Same stuff they use for pig's blood in Carrie.
This film is centered around a family, and you guessed it, it has all to do with bloodlines. So death is, well, it's tying up loose ends. So I guess that it would include all the previous films from before, okay? As in that all the people who died in those films tie in with this final installment of death tying up loose ends, all because of the tower survivors in this film from 1969. So basically, this is the reason for all the other films, because of this incident in 1969 that you'll see in Bloodlines. And if you all remember correctly, the first film was basically based in 2001 with the plane crash.
Alex, this fucking plane's gonna explode!
There is a scene where the only enjoyable death that I spoke about earlier to watch is a teenage boy that actually he almost survives the tower that would have, and he was the one responsible for everybody dying the day. But you have to watch the film to understand exactly why you would enjoy it, okay? But as an audience, you would really hate this kid. So coming back to present day, the descendants of the survivors of the tower incident are all being killed off during the first film, okay? Till this one, and eventually the last descendants all get on board that they are going to die in freak accidents, one by one. And they all agree that they need to cheat death somehow.
Does that mean if you figure out the design, you can cheat death?
But death proves that it's not that easy to cheat. So during the entire film, each family member gets picked off one by one until eventually only 2 members remain. And this one is quite a shock to me because I did not expect this to be the ending of the film at all. I sat there in silence hoping that maybe it's going to continue. But yeah, this film is really short. Definitely no way of telling if there is going to be another film coming soon.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
I will say that the only survivor was actually the mortician. That's right, the mortician from the very first movie, the very first film. He is in the latest release too, but he is actually one of the first tower survivors in the entire lore of Final Destination, and we don't see him get killed either, so maybe he's the only one that actually, survives. But my theory is that he is death in disguise because he just knows way too much. That's what I believe his character is all day. So, coming to the rant, the issue that I have with this film is that it is way too short and it's got a sudden ending to the film. They could have stretched it out another 15 minutes, that would have been okay with me, but we don't get that, and that's why when you watch the film, you're going to be like, wow, that was actually like really quick. The whole tower collapse scene, well, also, the scene at the beginning with the tower was so heavily CGI'd because they had to have an entire tower collapse in that scene. It was so over the top and so unbelievable. Plus, who decides in real life to have a glass floor in a restaurant? Hundreds of feet in the air anyway. You would have to have a limit of guests and staff that is allowed in that tower, okay, in that restaurant, in the entire area, because the material can only handle so much weight. I think the accidents and deaths that happened in all the Final Destination films was due to poor engineering and people not looking left and right while crossing the road, basically. All of a sudden, a plane explodes, or all of a sudden, a bus just appears from nowhere, even though there is a whole street to see it coming. People are not looking left and right, and people are not doing their jobs correctly when it comes to engineering.
What do you mean, you people?
What do you mean, you people?
So I say this is a fun film to watch. It does take me back to those Friday nights watching films and popcorn with friends, and it's definitely worth the watch. It's a fun film. But that's all from me. Bye.